hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show.
Alrighty, everybody, welcome into another Off Court with your host, Liv Moods. I'm joined by a very, very special guest, Brendan Vogt, here to talk all things Denver Nuggets with me. You are beat writer, reporter, host at DNVR right downtown. You guys have been building a brand and a business for how many years now? It's been
5 or 6. Yeah,
and you guys are doing
there.
a phenomenal job.
Thank you very much, Liv. Thank you very much.
Yeah, what does a day in the life look like for you, Brendan?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me.
Of course.
Guerrilla Sports, thank
It's
you
an
for having
honor.
me. Not that special of a guest following Katie Wingy, by the way.
Oh my gosh, no.
That's a
you
really
are.
tough no. That's a really tough follow. Katie's the best. A day in the life is a lot of what we're doing right now, Liv.
Yeah,
I wake
breaking it
up,
down.
I think Nuggets, I talk Nuggets. We're live 5 shows a week for the Nuggets show. And that's a lot easier to do in season, as you and I were talking
course.
off air.
Yes.
We want to do a show every day because we love this, but
course.
it's when you have more to talk about, it's a bit easier. But that's it. I mean, I write after every game. I go to the practices. So, we're credentialed there, and we try to find the balance, of what this is.
Yeah.
The future of sports media, I think, and what people have come to expect from sports media. So we're looking for the middle ground.
I love it. Well, you guys do a phenomenal job. You're great at what you do. I know that I actually got to guest on DNVR.
You did. Friend of the show.
Yeah, when they had their little championship run, and that was so fun. We were drinking, what was the liquor that we toasted to Nikola Jokic? And it was like, you guys, I think I turned into a fire-breathing dragon. It was the strongest alcohol I have ever consumed in my life, but we did it in honor of Nikola Jokic and their phenomenal playoff run. But what was that liquor? Because it was insane.
Rakia. It's called Rakia. It's Serbian.
And it'll rock you off your seat. Because
That's good.
Holy
That's good.
shit. Excuse my French. It was insane.
So it's Serbian brandy.
Okay.
But think moonshine culture.
Oh,
so if you're out in Serbia, like there are the brands that are sold, but it's really about the people that take you into their homes or their favorite restaurants and they say, my grandma made this. And it's like a clear plastic bottle.
Yep.
That's what you drink. That's the good stuff. It's Rakia. It's Jokic's secret stuff, and it's not for the faint of heart.
It is not. And you know what? It made me realize with the most quickness as I was trying to not pass away. It was so strong. It made me realize this might be the secret sauce to Nikola Jokic just being different. If this is what they sip on in Serbia, just as they casually sit back and watch their favorite show or their favorite movie or a basketball game even, then no wonder this man is unlike anything we've ever seen before, because it was insane. It knocked my socks off. But anyway, I had such a great time with you guys on
we
DNVR.
loved having you on.
So much fun. And then we got last season with the Denver Nuggets that looked a little different than the season that you and I got to talk over some rakia over. We definitely had a much different look on the Denver Nuggets last year. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about their upcoming schedule, because we have the schedule. We know what they're going to be seeing based on home/road rest advantages, travel, altitude, etc. The Nuggets enter the season with the NBA's easiest schedule in terms of strength of schedule. I personally believe, Brendan, and I would love your thoughts on this, that the key to this upcoming season with the Denver Nuggets is going to be pacing our guys. I felt like this last postseason, there was a whole lot of fatigue, mental exhaustion, physical exhaustion. They just looked run down, which naturally, you win a championship, the celebration kind of continues into the next season, just like that. We were just talking about it before we went live, that you basically just trickle into the next season. Before you know it, you're back into the thick of it. And I think that that's what we saw with the Denver Nuggets in their championship run, is that the celebrations were had because obviously it was historic. And then we were right back into a season where their bodies were just shot. So how do you think, in your opinion, that the Nuggets protect the bodies of the stars this upcoming season?
Great question. We've talked about this a lot. Maybe one of the first places you start, before you even talk about the schedule, just things they can do, raising the floor in the non-Jokic minutes. Mm-hmm. So the bench has been a problem the whole time, Liv. You know this.
Yep.
It hasn't actually stopped them from winning a bunch of games.
No.
So I think it really comes into play in this specific conversation. being able to buy more rest within games. So not even necessarily Yoke and Murray are taking this game off, but we cruised in the non-Jokic minutes, right? From the Nuggets perspective, we have this big lead in the fourth. We don't need to play our stars tonight. Denver doesn't blow a lot of teams out.
Right.
And it's because no matter how good the starters are when Jokic sits, that
it's a very different
the margin
energy.
shrinks.
Yes.
So I think right off the bat, the hope is, does a new backup point guard, a veteran one, Russell Westbrook, obviously, and Dario Saric, allow them to sort of raise the floor in the non-Jokic minutes. So those additions could help.
Yeah.
But also, does Malone have to maybe get creative with the rotations? He's typically done the one starter stagger.
Yeah.
It's usually Jamal to play with the bench. Is it just like trying things with more lineups that aren't just all 5 starters or 4 starters together, and just seeing if there are other ways to navigate 82 games?
Like new combinations,
New
maybe.
combinations,
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
Multiple starters off the bench, or Porter staggers with the bench, or just so you look at, just so that it's not these 5 guys, these 5 guys, these 5 guys, these 5 guys.
Yeah.
And just maybe looking at it that way. Now, the problem is, Liv, right? Like, you don't want to lose any games. They lost that Spurs game late in the season last year, and everyone still thinks it has a really large...
It just was the most like out of body, like it was not the Denver Nuggets.
It didn't feel like it.
It was. I was watching that game and I just genuinely convinced myself. I was again. This is not correct. This is my own way of thinking so that I can sleep through the night. I was like, that was intentional. Had to have been intentional, because what the F was that? It was just so out of character for them to lose that game. But then you hear KCP go on a podcast talking about, hey, we were kind of all on different pages when it came to chasing the number 1 seed, yes or no. And so it does make you wonder, was there an ounce of some of those older veterans saying, hey, let's pump the brakes. We don't need the 1 seed. Let's rest our bodies. Let's give ourselves a second. But again, to your point, earlier on in the season, if there is a little bit more creativity in rotation and you've got a few different combinations of staggering your starters in with some of the bench guys, and hopefully a Russell Westbrook can be an addition that can elevate our bench so that it doesn't feel like it's such a significant drop off when you lose a guy like Jokic because he's resting or he's in foul trouble, which we know the refs don't always work in favor of Nikola Jokic, so that's a whole nother aspect of it. And so what do some of those creative rotations to you look like? Who do you think a Michael Porter Jr. could be put in with to maybe add a little fire, a little spunk to this Nuggets team?
That's where it gets fun, because you and I can talk about this, but Michael Malone's making the decision. And
absolutely. You know what, Coach Malone, we'd actually love for you to tune into the show and hear what we have to say.
Tell us what you think. But like, so he would say, but I don't want to lose any game because we lost that one Spurs game and look what happened, right? So his philosophy was, let's play the starters constantly. Can you find way? Are you comfortable maybe losing a game because you experimented with the rotation? But I would start maybe with saying Porter off the bench. Russ is still really good at getting to the rim.
Yeah.
Not great at finishing there.
Yeah.
I think you really want kick-out partners like Julian Strother's. I think a guy who should play alongside Russ.
Yeah,
a lot.
There's a lot of upside to Julian Strother. I'm excited about him.
Could Porter play some 4 off the bench? So there are those things. Could it be 2 starters at the same time? So you can kind of look at it that way, but I'm not hopeful because I think Malone, this word sounds so negative, he is stubborn, like as a matter of fact. If it's not broke, don't fix it, right?
Yeah.
And
which
so,
it can be a great thing for sure, but also when you're looking for that edge and maybe, hey, something wasn't clicking last year, what's got to give?
Change it up.
He may be a little stubborn.
Is it out of his nature? I don't know. But that is right off the way. Like, my first question is it just going to be Jamal again? Is it going to be Jamal playing next to Murray, or is it going to be more next to Westbrook, or is it going to be more creative than that? We'll find out together. I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah,
but
right?
I'm hopeful.
I'm with you. I've learned with the Denver Nuggets, don't hold your breath. You'll pass out. There's too many emotional roller coasters that you're going to face throughout the season with the Denver Nuggets. And it's so funny because I think their championship run kind of set I don't want to say an unrealistic standard, because I think it's very realistic that they get there again. I think the standard that it set, though, is once you've seen greatness of that level, anything less than that and you're like disappointed, when in reality the Nuggets were still winning games last year. The Nuggets still climbed back from a 20-point deficit in the middle of a playoff game against the Lakers. Jamal Murray still had buzzer-beating shots to win the game. There were so many good things that came out of the Nuggets season, but because we've seen it at its best, where not only did they win a championship, but they won it convincingly. And it was probably the safest I've ever felt as a Denver Nuggets fan watching them in that stretch. It was just like, I never had a moment where I thought, are they going to be able to do it? They just did it. And I had this, I'm getting goosebumps. You guys, when Katie Wingy was on the show, I got goosebumps maybe 3 or 4 times. Whenever I talk about the Nuggets at their peak,
that run
really does.
But that's it. And now that's the
magic.
standard we hold them to.
And now that's the standard. And that, unfortunately, is just part of being not just the best in this, not last season, but the season before, but convincingly the best. Like, it was the most comfortable I've ever felt. So I want to talk to you a little bit. And we actually, in regards to the schedule, and you said maybe at what point does he decide to maybe get creative? The Nuggets open the season with 7 of their first 10 games at home. So here's my dilemma, though, because that would probably be a good time, knowing how well that the Nuggets defend home court typically. Please ignore the Timberwolves series. I am trying to as well. It's too difficult for me to think about it because it doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. Last season, they only lost 8 home games, okay? So the Timberwolves series made no sense. So let's just pretend they are back to their normal form of defending home court well. Here's my only issue. You've got 7 of the first 10 games at home, so that may be a good time to get creative with your rotation, staggering starters, what have you. However, you've got 2 of your best players that had a shortened offseason due to the Olympics, and you've got new pieces that you're trying to implement into this new offense, whether it be Westbrook or, we haven't talked about this at all yet with you being here, CB as a starter. It's looking like Christian Brown is going to be the starter, and that's new for this starting 5. Losing KCP. I talked with Katie Wingy last week, and she said losing KCP was a bigger deal than people think it was. He was a huge asset, not just in what he did in his game, which was the 3-and-D guy, but also in his leadership.
Because of that,
and kind of being the heart and soul of the locker room in so many ways. So there's a lot of different things that I think are going to require an adjustment period. Do you think that again, we're pretending the series between the Timberwolves and the Nuggets did not happen, even though it certainly did. Do you think in these first 10 games, with 7 of them being at home, that is a good time for the Nuggets to say, all right, let's get our kinks out. Let's establish what this feels like.
Let's experiment a little.
Is that the best time? Now, you do face the Thunder twice, both at home, thankfully. But you face the Timberwolves on the road. You've got the Heat in there. You've got the Mavs. There's a few games where it's going to be, it may be tough competition.
Yeah. You get some at home and you avoid back-to-backs. So I do think it's all a matter of perspective. I think this is you could say that maybe the opportunity is there for them to win a lot of games up front early in the season, as opposed to last year. I thought it was maybe in the middle. This year, I think it's early. But like you just said, are they prepared to hit the ground running? Maybe less so than ever. Murray, notoriously slow starter. Also, how hurt is he? Oh my gosh. He appears to still be injured.
Yeah, he really does. I talked to Katie Wingy as well, and I can talk to you about the same situation here. She is not as worried about Jamal as I am.
Okay, that's good.
Which I loved hearing. Yeah. She's around these guys full time. Yep. She knows how they're using their off season. She knows what it takes to get them where they need to go. She's watched it unfold. I am a little worried about Jamal Murray.
Me too.
Full transparency, and I don't like to sugarcoat anything on this show. If you've followed me for a long time, you know there is nothing about the Liv Moods brand that coincides with sugarcoating. I just don't do it. I am worried about Jamal Murray in the sense that, hey, I do think he was more injured than he let on. But nonetheless, Jamal Murray having scoreless first halves, Jamal Murray scoring 8 total points in a playoff game, it's just not like him. And then I know outside factors, it's a very different situation. But I was hoping, okay, if he's going to spend his offseason continuing to play basketball in Paris, which is the highest honor, and I would hope that he would do that to represent Team Canada, my hope was that he would play in the Olympics and look better.
Yeah, me too.
And he didn't look better.
He did not.
So now we're in this situation of, okay, he spent his offseason not resting, not rehabbing, which his body probably needs in so many ways. And he didn't look better. He didn't address the concerns that I had from him in the postseason. So what do you think? What do you think Jamal Murray looks like? You said he is a habitually slow starter. But he was also a slow finisher this past season.
Well, that is true.
So it's
too.
like, what do you think needs to happen with Jamal Murray in these next very short months to get him where we need him?
Well, I'd love to just say that he comes into camp in the best shape that he's entered camp in. Typically, he plays himself into shape. He's not the hottest starter out of the gate. By January, usually he and the Nuggets are a buzzsaw. Mm-hmm. But is he? I don't know if he can right now, because it sounds like what you really need is for him to be fully healthy, which would involve rest, which would involve maybe not entering camp in peep shape, which is kind of what I say when I'm worried about Jamal. If you're going to judge a guy by the nadirs, like the Olympics, you also have to include the peaks. We cannot forget that what Jamal Murray did just 2 seasons ago. We know what he's capable of. We know what the top of the top is. How high is the floor? How often does it fall out? How worried does Denver have to be about that going forward? And like, look, man, look, Liv, you want to see this is DNVR Nuggets podcast coming out.
We are all about that here. Lay it on me. That's all good. I'm good with that.
Like, we want to see Jamal Murray be an all-star. Like, we just do. And that's not because all-star means it would mean that he had the consistency and the health and the hot start to the season we've been looking for.
Yes.
So, look, can I conceive of Jamal Murray turning it back on in the playoffs? Yeah, of course. But what I'm worried about is how long it takes for him to get to that place, and how, if he's able to live there more often across 82 games and not just those 16 games. And lastly, the 16 games, he has to prove that again now too. After he won that title, he was so good that you'd think no questions left.
Yeah.
And then the next year went so unfortunately that I think we have questions again.
Yeah, we do.
So the burden of proof is on Jamal, in my opinion. We know what he's capable of, but I do think he has to sort of shore up our belief again, if that's fair.
Absolutely. I don't know if this is a conversation I've seen people have just yet, but I'm interested to hear your perspective. I don't want to say I'm a conspiracy theorist, but maybe I am a little bit. I always like to think about like the hypotheticals. Could this be the reason for this, and that, whatever? Is there a world, and I'm just speaking hypotheticals here, people, don't shoot the messenger or the thinker. I'm just saying, I'm thinking out loud here. Is there a world where a Russell Westbrook elevates Jamal Murray's game in the sense that we haven't really had a player come up behind Jamal Murray that poses a real threat? Now, I'm not saying that Russell Westbrook is in his prime. I'm not saying he's a starter for this team. But what I am saying is, I think Russell Westbrook is like that of a flower. You put him in the right environment. You give him the sunlight, the water, the soil. I think he can thrive.
Yeah.
I think, will we get Russell Westbrook in his prime? Probably not. Can we get him sniffing close to that? I think we can. Because I think what you're about to see with Russell Westbrook is the same thing you see with Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, KCP, Bruce Brown, what have you. Nikola Jokic elevates every player around him. So for all the Lakers fans, the Clippers fans that are like, best of luck with Westbrook, good luck with that one, Liv, have so much fun. Yeah, the difference is Russell Westbrook hasn't been on a team with Nikola Jokic yet. Nikola Jokic is notorious for elevating players that are around him. If you're on the court with Nikola Jokic, you will look like a better basketball player, point blank period, which is why he's a 3-time MVP and one of the greatest to ever do it. So, is there a world where Russell Westbrook elevates Jamal Murray's game? Because he may be the first guard to come up behind Jamal that poses any, even if it's this big, any type of threat.
Great question and great framing, by the way. First of all, I do agree with the fact that the Lakers,
Lakers fans.
Russ's struggles are tied very closely to Los Angeles, I feel like, in the broader narrative. And
doesn't LA just wouldn't it just suck to play in LA?
If you weren't Anthony Davis or LeBron,
right?
Yes, or Kawhi, yes, it would.
And guess what? I get it. And LeBron and Anthony Davis fans, I'm not knocking your city in the sense that the Lakers are a historic franchise that has won a lot, and I have the most respect for them, but it's not for everybody.
No, I mean, like, if you are remotely struggling, you're just in the way and need to be traded.
There you go.
It's tough. Yeah. But to your point, right, I think fitting Russ alongside LeBron, or just instead of LeBron, or alongside James Harden, or honestly, even in their peaks, and this went quite well, alongside Kevin Durant, that was all your turn, my turn stuff.
Yeah,
and Jokic
totally.
is, the way that Jokic is great is it starts in how he makes other people better, more so than maybe any other great player in the league right now. And And I think Russ is also a point guard. So can they find some chemistry? Yes. To the second part of your question, I love this line of thinking. To me, it's maybe less about scaring Jamal about, I'm going to take your place.
Yes.
And it's more about like, here's Russell Westbrook, former MVP, a name you can respect, Jamal Murray. And he got to the gym maybe 30 minutes earlier than you did today. Or he played a little harder in this game than you did today. Or he took practice a little more seriously than you did today.
Totally.
And that's not to imply that Jamal never does those things, but just remember the Hunter Hunted lines after the playoffs. And I appreciated them kind of admitting this. It did feel like maybe they took their foot off the gas a little bit after they won the title.
Absolutely.
And they thought, we're exhausted. Maybe just not our year. The motivation's not there.
Hell, I took my foot off the gas.
So did, right?
I was like, damn, we're so good. We could just be chilling. We're fine.
And I would guess that as a teammate, Russ is a guy that doesn't like when people take their feet off the gas.
I love that, though. I'm ready for that.
Right?
I want that so bad.
So the last, like, we know Jamal Murray's talent is, like, again, what he did in the bubble in the finals, short list of people that could even dream of doing that. But just getting the absolute most of himself out of a competitor. Can Russ help push him forward? And I think that'd be really, really cool. I think Denver does have a weird, they're a little quiet.
Yeah.
They can get, maybe complacent's not the right word, but they're just not, they don't have a Draymond Green. But now they have Russell Westbrook.
You know what? And that's such a good point, because really, I do think when you say complacent, it sounds like such a negative thing. And I don't think that they ever go into a season going, we're chilling.
They did win 57 games too.
Correct.
So
they know better. They're too well coached. They're too talented. They have too many superstars that care about this game too much to ever have that complacency mindset. But I do think when you it's like when you sweep a team in the first round of the playoffs. You may go into that second round feeling like, whoo, okay, we're feeling pretty good, and not know what's on the other side. Like, there is an aspect of comfortability with the game that when you know you're good, you just kind of, you let your body do the work. You kind of remove the mental aspect of it. And I think that's what we saw from the Nuggets in this most recent postseason. It just looked like their bodies were there. They were playing the game we know that they know how to play. But mentally, I was like, this doesn't feel like the championship energy at all. It's just not there.
It takes such a hunger. And
totally.
Like, that's the one thing I learned covering those 2 years back to back. The year they won, the year they didn't. The hunger. And I just think there are certain players, and Russ, again, far from his peak, we know, minimum contract, but that is one of the things that I feel like stands out to me about his whole career. Is maybe he'll gamble on defense or take a possession off, but in general, like, he's insatiable. He's starving. He doesn't.
He's a competitor.
Yeah, like,
he really is.
What do you mean we just don't feel as motivated this year? What are you talking about? Like, we're getting this second one, and I do think they needed a bit of that. This is off the court stuff. This is some fan fiction, right? As fans, but is it on the table, Liv? I think it is.
I agree, and I think that there's a. Yeah, I'm feeling very optimistic about Russell Westbrook. Of course, the name Russell in Denver with high hopes doesn't feel very great.
No,
I'm going to be completely honest with you, but I do feel great. I've always been a fan of Westbrook's game and the way in which he plays so competitively. He's just got that excitement and that energy that I think our bench will really benefit from. Yeah. And to your point, you make a great point about it's less about him posing a threat to Jamal Murray in the sense that, hey, I'm going to come take your spot, but it's more of a, hey, media outlets talk. Jamal Murray, when getting booed by the Timberwolves fans, popped off and said, F you, that did not work out for you. I think he likes being the slept-on, underdog, villainized athlete. And when he is that person, he thrives.
Yes.
So maybe there's a world where Russell Wilson, oh my gosh.
There you
guys,
go.
I'm getting my Russells confused. You send a Russell to Denver and give me high hopes, and I can't keep them straight.
Please go different.
Russell, yeah, right. Let me not even put that effing energy in the air. Not Wilson, Westbrook. Okay, so there is a world maybe where Westbrook out the gates looks great, better than we've seen him look in the past few seasons. That could be motivating to Jamal Murray.
Yes.
That could be like, hey, whoa. I'm not worried about him taking my spot, but this guy, I'm that guy.
Yes.
This is my team. Not saying we can't share it, because I do think you brought up a really great little one-liner. You said it's not yours or mine, but I think with Nikola Jokic and this Denver Nuggets team, it's our success.
Yes.
It's not your success. Hey, Jamal, you had a scoreless first half. That's fine. MPJ's been the most consistent we've seen him be in a while. He's got you.
Right.
Like, there is just that our mentality that they have. So I think there's a world where we do see Westbrook really balling out early, because, again, Nikola Jokic loves to elevate all of the players that surround him, which is one of the things that makes him so great. But in doing that, it may motivate Jamal Murray to say, hey, whatever. And maybe what we're seeing with Jamal is just a mental rut.
Yeah.
That's also very normal with these professional athletes. And so maybe it's going to take a veteran like Westbrook, who's also had mental ruts, to look at him and go, dude,
great point.
You are too
mentally,
good. Mentally, you are so.
That's a great point,
You're
Liv.
so in your head that you just. So maybe Westbrook not only can pose a threat in the sense of like, hey, I'm going to stick a fire under your butt and motivate you, but also rely on me. I've been there. I've done this. I've been scrutinized by the media.
Let me be your vet.
I've been, I've had the air balls. I've had the this, the that, but I'm still Russell Westbrook. I'm still leading in triple doubles. Okay. I've still done this. So maybe there's a world where Westbrook kind of acts as a mentor for a Jamal Murray who seems like he's been in a mental rut for kind of a minute now.
Very, very hopeful for this exact dynamic to play out. I think that would be because look, Jamal, there's a lot of pressure right now. He's arguably the biggest swing factor in the NBA.
Oh, yeah.
If Jamal Murray looks great, you put them right back into the inner circle of contenders. If Jamal Murray struggles, we're going to nationally, the conversation of the Nuggets are going backwards. That will continue.
Of course.
So, like, this is on Jamal. And to your point about the mental rut, in my time here, I can't remember a time where he was more, whether it's fair or not, criticized than he has been in the last year.
Yeah, I agree.
So this is a real, as far as being a competitor, which is what Jamal does for a living, is a real turning point.
I was going to say this might be the year for Jamal Murray to either solidify in the right way or the wrong way who he is as a player.
You tell us take the conversation out of, right? Like Liv and I are going to have these conversations all summer. Take it away from us. Don't let us have this conversation, right? Answer it emphatically for us. And we thought he had 2 years ago. And again, you can't just throw out that he did that. But the question is, will you get back there? Yeah. And as you've heard all of this noise all summer, which way does it drive you? Further into a hole or into the best version of yourself as a competitor? And I think everyone's hopeful it's the latter, of course.
I totally agree. And I do have to give a little bit of a shout out to Russell Westbrook as well in taking straight to his Instagram story to say, this is bullshit. That did not happen. I did not ask CB for his number. He did not decline me of having the number that I wanted. This is bullshit across the board. This never happened. I'm excited to be here. I'm already in the lab with CB. To me, that speaks volumes of the type of leader that Westbrook is already planning on being for this Denver Nuggets team. Because you know how many times a media outlet has said something false or fabricated about an NBA player? They don't have to go on their story and clarify that it's untrue. He could have let CB look like the villain and said, man, whatever, no comment, or just addressed it down the road when people have already, because I saw the comments on the post and it was, who does this CB guy think he is?
Right.
Who even is Christian Brown? This is Westbrook we're talking about here. This is what. And Westbrook did not hesitate to get on his story and clarify that is untrue. I am here in Denver. I'm ready to make it work for the Mile High City. And I don't know how you don't like Westbrook unless you're from LA and he just didn't work for you. Well, but if he didn't work for you, maybe do some soul searching on why that is, because I don't necessarily know it's Westbrook's problem. I think, he's not in his peak. Most players aren't unless you're freaking LeBron James and you're almost 40 years old.
Yeah, he's a 35-year-old guard.
Yeah, exactly. He's going to be 50 and still look like he's in his prime. But yeah, I think it's hard not to like Russell Westbrook. Truly.
Okay, so funny story. That was my colleague, Harrison Wynn, that put that story out there.
There we go.
So you got the right guest. And I'll tell you that I also liked the Russ statement. Now, for maybe a different reason. Harrison didn't make anything up. I'll just leave it at that. But
Okay, you're hearing it here firsthand, people.
But actually, he didn't make it up. Harrison's not. He doesn't make things up.
Harrison is one phenomenal.
If he's saying it, he at very least heard it. I just want to point that. I just want to put that out there. I'm not here to. Harrison can speak for himself, but I'll just say.
No, I'm glad. Seriously, I'm glad you're clearing it up because that's important. I think Harrison did, and actually on our show he said this today. He owned up that the wording maybe made it seem a bit more inflammatory than it was. Okay.
Because Harrison's intention was not to start a beef between Westbrook's fan base and Christian Brown. What I liked and I agree with you big time, is obviously Wynn's reporting was a casualty, but Russ went out and nipped that in the bud, which I thought was actually really great as a teammate. CB's a
Absolutely.
starter. It's a big year for CB.
Absolutely.
And I think Russ was probably very aware that he brings with him his own fan base.
That's it. I think he knows that he's got fans that are like ride or die, will follow you wherever.
And we're not starting with a civil war. So
Correct.
I actually really appreciate what Russ did.
Absolutely.
I also know that like Harrison wasn't making stuff up just to stir stuff up, but
that's not who Harrison is. As far as I've known him, and I follow him, and he's very credible and very, very great at what he does, and I think he values integrity above all else. So I don't for one second think that it was an entirely fabricated story. But I do like that Westbrook involved himself in the sense of saying, hey, let's not make this something that it doesn't need to be, like maybe there was a conversation that we don't know about that was had where there was an exchange
but
and there was a decline.
Beef.
But it's not beef, and he made that very clear on his story, and I think that's a very important way to start the season, especially to your point with the CB that is about to become a starter potentially. It's a lot of pressure, big shoes to fill, and so Westbrook knows he's got a large following of fans that will follow him wherever, and they hear that this first-time starter is denying Westbrook of his number. Yeah, it's World War Jersey, to be honest, but it doesn't need to be.
I think just Westbrook Googled this kid's name. Yeah, exactly.
Westbrook's like, it doesn't need to go there. We're good. We're chilling. We're in the Mile High City.
I really appreciate that. And it's because also, by the way, players asking for jersey numbers, it happens all the time.
All the time.
And there are a lot of fun ways in which these things are figured out. I think once John Kruk, the baseball player, gave his jersey number up for 2 cases of beer. For other people, it's $40,000. For him, it was 2 cases of beer.
Which is so funny because oh my gosh, my hat is like so crooked. Let me not do the Denver Nuggets wrong here. It's so funny. I was just talking to Nate Jackson, who I co-host the Off-Field show with, former Bronco, and he said, "Yeah, back in the day, you said name your price."
Yep.
Pay up. You can have my jersey number all you want, but I want that money right now. I think we were talking upstairs about the fact that like sometimes Rolexes are on the table, a gift maybe. So yeah, I just appreciated that he took to social media to immediately declare that there is no beef that is happening between a starter and a longtime veteran in this league. I appreciated that so much. I think
it was a great start. I agree. Look, both parties need this. Like Russ has had a tremendous career, and fair or not, we'll find out because we only know Rush through the same lens that every other national fan or analyst does. Like, oh, it didn't work here, it didn't work there. We're going to learn for ourselves why it does or doesn't work out with Russ in Denver. But Russ kind of needs this. Like, Russ needs it to work in Denver. Obviously, we know he wants that ring. The way it went in LA.
God, wouldn't you love that for him?
He got
get another one to get a ring and then have another one for the Denver Nuggets. I just think I'd probably be crying like a baby.
For Russ to get over the hill and do it here and do it with Jokic after it didn't work out in LA alongside all the traditional in the club NBA stars, it would just feel like a very fun Denver Nuggets story.
Of course.
If Jokic gets the best out of him, he gets the best out of the Nuggets. But look, Denver needs a backup ball handler with some juice, with some athleticism, and Russ needs a team that knows how to make his life easier.
Yeah.
So I love that he came in and he was like, you know what we're not doing is the Civil War stuff again.
Yeah.
That's not what I want in Denver.
That's LA behavior, not Mile High City behavior. We don't do that here. There's no need for it. I think the Nuggets, one thing I just absolutely adore is my Nuggets could suck. They could lose all the games in the world, whatever. One thing that you will never be able to convince me out of knowing to my core is that the Denver Nuggets are a liked team. They're likable guys. They don't really cause any problems. There's not a ton of drama. Sure, for so many years we were a small market, so people just didn't give a shit about the Denver Nuggets.
That's a big
part of it. However, this is just a good group of not only athletes, but just people. And I think that they're just such a likable group that it makes it so easy to root for the Denver Nuggets. There's always that team that you're just like, in the world of football, the Cowboys, doesn't matter who's on, you just can't stand them. They drive you up a wall.
Totally.
Unless you're a Lakers fan through and through, the Lakers are probably on there as well as like a, here they go again. I just feel like the Nuggets, unless you're a Lakers fan, because you've been absolutely demolished.
They've got a good reason to dislike the Nuggets.
Yeah, very good reason to not like the Nuggets. I get it, especially because I'm a loudmouth fan that doesn't ever give you guys a break. I'm relentless, so get it. I totally understand why you don't like the Nuggets, but for the most part, I think the Nuggets are a pretty likable team, and I think that that's something I'm excited for Westbrook to finally be a part of. I do feel like after Washington, he was kind of a part of toxic franchises.
Yeah, or at least
and I didn't like that
associated
for
with
him.
it. Yeah, totally.
So I'm excited to see what he does in Denver.
Me too, and I also think you just hit on maybe like the most interesting non-basketball story or part of the Nuggets this year. As you said, they spent most of this tenure out of the spotlight.
Yep.
So even if there were little frictions, we never heard about them or no one cared. We literally already is the case. It's different with Russell Westbrook.
Mm-hmm.
So how much will that change? How much will Russ bring that kind of, I guess I'll just say the word circus, but it's not a knock on Russ, just the attention.
Yeah.
Just the attention.
I think being a notable veteran in the league that's broken records and still holds records and has just had such a, honestly, roller coaster of a career in the NBA. He really has. I mean, if you look at the different teams that Russell Westbrook has been on, it looks like many different players. It looks like it doesn't look like the same guy. He's had but
everyone knows his name.
Everybody knows who he is. He's had very different versions of himself, but he is still Russell Westbrook at the end of the day. So I'm feeling very excited. I want to wrap with this, Brendan. I want you to, based on our schedule, when you're looking at it as a whole, again, if you take into consideration the rest advantage, the road versus home, the altitude, all that stuff, the Nuggets technically have the easiest strength of schedule. Now, when you're looking at the Nuggets schedule, who do you fear the most? Because I will tell you, I'll just throw this in before I let you talk.
Okay.
How I feared the Timberwolves last season as a strong opponent for the Denver Nuggets is now how I feel about OKC.
I knew you were going to say that.
I think OKC is a threat. I think they made all the right moves in the offseason. I think they addressed their issues. Where there were holes in the OKC organization, they filled, in my opinion, in the offseason. Does that mean it's going to work? No. We know how this goes. There could be an injury. There could be something we know that it is not as easy as you build a good roster, you win lots of basketball games. There's a lot that has to go into it, and a lot of things have to go right to win a championship. We know that now that we've watched the Nuggets do it. Who do you fear the most when you look at this entire schedule as a whole?
Not to be boring, I think you have the right team to start with. First of all, I think for years now, win or loss, they've been sneakily putting together really competitive games with Denver, really tough games.
Oh, yeah.
And in the 82-game format, too, they have, I think, one of the two best rosters in the league, Boston and theirs, just 82 games. And then their approach is good. Like, they know their identity around SGA. It is foul happy, but that works in the regular season. It works for SGA. And Denver struggles to guard some of what they have going on, particularly SGA.
Yep.
And then also, we'll see how, if at all, it changes with Hartenstein. But Chet, as a stretch big, like, you get Yoke in space, that's where you want him. So, like, do I think things could change in a 7-game series between Denver and Oklahoma City in Denver's favor? Absolutely. But catching them in the regular season, I think I've always thought of them as a tough game, and now I think they are going to win the most games in the West heading into the playoffs. I think they'll be the 1 seed again. Not that hot of a take, but I think you have the right name. With the Wolves, I wonder, the whole Hunter hunted thing we were talking about earlier, I wonder if Denver has all the motivation they need now. For a few years, they treated the Wolves in the regular season kind of like a cute up-and-coming team.
Oh, yeah.
And then the Wolves did what they did to them in Game 7. And I would hope, Liv, that Denver has all the motivation they
learn
need
their lesson. Yeah,
for the 4 times they play them.
Because honestly, even in the championship run by the Nuggets, that was the most stressful series to me, was against the Timberwolves.
Yeah.
It wasn't the finals versus the Heat. It wasn't the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals. The Timberwolves, when the Nuggets won it all, the Timberwolves series to me felt the most stressful.
Bruce Brown agrees with you.
Yeah, I felt like the Timberwolves were they sized the best against the Nuggets. They had that size advantage to me physically. I felt like it was just, that to me felt like the Nuggets' toughest competition. So I will forever think that the Timberwolves are a threat. But OKC definitely is up there for me. Do you have any major NBA, because as media members in the NBA space, I know that you and I are probably very similar in the sense that we've got that one opinion that we know maybe the public won't love or super agree with, but do you have a hot take as we approach this upcoming season? It can be specific to the Denver Nuggets, or it could be Eastern Conference, Western Conference. Do you have any sleeper teams or anything?
I'll go Western Conference. I'll get negative with it and risk being clipped on the internet.
There we go.
I'm not buying Dallas. I think Dallas got the best out of themselves last year. And then they got to the playoffs, and I think the Wolves, the Nuggets, And the Thunder, maybe they're a little too young, but they should all have felt somewhat embarrassed that Dallas represented the Western Conference.
I agree.
I just didn't think they were quite ready. They made great trade deadline moves, really heady, smart moves. They got hot at the right time. Luka was unbelievable up until the finals. But out west right now, I still think it's OKC, Denver, and Minnesota before I get to Dallas. Obviously, I've got a little bias in there, but I just don't. I think Dallas has to show it to me one more time before I just say, okay, that was their great run, as opposed to they've leveled up.
I love that take. I really do. What are your thoughts about the return of Ja Morant? We know that the Memphis Grizzlies got Zach Edey. We know JJJ, Jaren Jackson Jr. was showing what he can do without Ja Morant on the floor. We've got Desmond Bane, who's a lethal three-point shooter. Ja Morant, what are your thoughts there? Because again, he had some off-court issues in addition to the injury. So for whatever reason, honestly, and I know it's not the case, it's not true, but I guess my hot take is, it's not really a take, but it's more of just like an observation. It feels like Ja Morant just like fell off the map, but not because of skill. It's just he got injured. He had off-court issues. We haven't seen him play in a while. And this was a guy that I think we spoke about in the same tone as Anthony Edwards. He had this very electric, physical, exciting style of play. He felt like he was really one of one. And I think the biggest difference between Anthony Edwards and Ja Morant, in my opinion, was that perfect balance of humble and cocky. And I felt like Ja Morant just tapped into the cocky side a little too much, and I think he lost people that way. It feels like he fell off, but I know he didn't. He's still Ja Morant.
Right.
He's still, the king of Memphis. He's still going to do what he needs to do. But what do you project for the Grizzlies when he comes back?
Phenomenal question, because what does anyone do with the Grizzlies? Okay, so since he said we're fine in the West, they have been anything but fine.
That was the worst thing he could have ever said.
Right up until he said it, they were, I don't want to say maybe like the way everyone talks about OKC now, but if you had to pick a team that had next, it looked like Memphis.
Yeah.
They're a great young core.
Yeah.
And
100%.
And Ja looked unstoppable. So, I mean, Ja, I think once he gets healthy and is playing, he's still going to be Ja. But how good is that compared to the other very, very, very best players in the playoffs?
Yep.
And do the Grizzlies have any mojo right now? Like, they had so much 2 years ago.
So much.
And it feels like they almost have to start over from scratch right now.
So, you know what? I think my take on the Memphis Grizzlies situation, we talked about it when we were talking about our football show, because Nate is a former Bronco and he kind of has lived through this experience before. But he said the speed in which the game can pass you is crazy. And for some reason, it feels like with the Memphis Grizzlies, they've had that solid young core that excited a lot of people. They've got talent, they've got skill, but it feels like the West has passed them.
It does.
When Ja Morant got injured, when Ja Morant had off-court issues, it felt like the West just kept getting better and better, and I feel like they fell so far behind that it's going to take quite a bit to get them to catch up.
I
It just
agree
feels
with
like
you.
the West has gotten so freakishly competitive and intense, and that it's just like, even if the Grizzlies are the best version of themselves, I think the game has passed them a little bit.
I kind of agree.
That's kind of how it feels.
I kind of agree. Or they're, in terms of the conversation, right? They have to leapfrog someone, to your point. So, like, they're not going to look better than OKC.
Right.
Are they going to look better than Minnesota? Like,
Doubt it.
so, you know what I mean? Like, they can get themselves back into, like, yeah, we won a lot of games, but I think they'd have to do so much before people start going, maybe not contenders, but the best of the rest, the next tier, they would have been right at the top of that 2 years ago. They're not now, and I think they have a lot of work cut out for them. Now, he could just come back, look great, they get their swagger back right away, and things are fine.
Totally.
But it does feel like they went from near the top to, like, they fell all the way back off.
I agree 100%. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds. I think that overall my take is that the Western Conference is going to be a flipping bloodbath, and I think the Nuggets have everything they need to compete and to stand atop the Western Conference, but so much of it we have to see. I can predict that I think it's going to be a great year for them, but I think there's too many question marks that we kind of have to see what that chemistry looks like. I do think there will be some growing pains early on in the season. Thankfully, 7 of the first 10 games are at home. We know outside of the Timberwolves series, they do defend home court very well, so hoping that continues for this team.
Please.
But Brendan, thank you so much for being
Liv, this
here.
was a blast.
You do phenomenal work over at DNVR. DNVR as a whole does phenomenal work. Like you and I talked about before the show, the Denver media market is so small that we're kind of all on the same team. We're all trying to accomplish the same thing. We're trying to spread the love and awareness about how great this Denver Nuggets team is. That's all we care about. We just want people to understand and recognize that they are worth talking about. They're worth media attention.
And just that Nuggets fans have plenty of places to go, whether it's good or bad things happening.
Absolutely.
There's all kinds of shows that take different angles with different personalities. I really wanted to get in here and check out the Gorilla Sports Studios, see what you guys have going on. I'm impressed.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm impressed.
Yes, we have a really good thing going in here. I mean, truly, it's been really fun to be a part of it, and like you know better than anybody else, the Denver media side of things is an interesting place because die-hard Denver sports fans love it, but to get other people on board is tough because people just don't care about Denver, especially the Nuggets, the way that they should. So it's been fun. I've been blessed and honored to be here. We have a great team of producers and editors and talent that work really hard to make it all run. As you know, it takes a village.
Oh,
you know it better than anybody. So appreciate you for being here. Would love to have you back anytime you're free. I'm sure there was actually one person on Twitter shouted you out and said, please give him my best. Let me see if I can find it really fast. I did. They did respond and said it was, who was it that said that? I quote tweeted it, I believe. But somebody gave you a shout out specifically and said, please let him know that, oh wait, it might be right here. Tyler Key.
Oh yeah,
Tyler Key.
I know Tyler.
He said, Vogt is my favorite. Tell him Bubbles loves him and remind him that Jordan McRae wasn't a culture fit. Please and thanks.
Yeah, he super chats us at the end of every show and he makes a Jordan McRae joke. It's an unbelievable commitment to a bit that's for like 4 people.
Well, he's continuing it here, even when you're guesting. So I love that.
Thank you.
We
Thank you,
respect and admire the commitment to the bit.
Oh, we will
for
always,
sure.
always.
But I would love to have you back anytime you're free.
Say the word, Liv.
Just to come and chat all things Denver Nuggets. Obviously, October, I think 22nd is when. Is that the first? That's opening night. So that's when everything gets really crazy. But whenever you have time, would love to have you back in here and chat all things Denver Nuggets with you. Thank you so much for being here, and best of luck to you, DNVR, our Denver Nuggets. Fingers crossed. Hopefully we got a good and healthy and successful season on the horizon. But thank you for taking the time to be here, and hopefully we'll have you back soon.
My pleasure, Liv. I'd love to be back.
All right, we'll see you guys soon. Thank you for tuning in to another Off Court with your host, Liv Moods, special guest Brendan Vogt. We will be back again next week with another special guest to talk all things Denver Nuggets as we approach the upcoming season. So we'll see you soon. Thanks for hanging, and let's go Nuggets.